Hi, I'm Frank Diaz. I founded Omzig, managed services provider in South Florida. I'm here with Chuong Dong. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, Chuong is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I also go with Peter if you prefer that.
Okay, we can do that
Yeah.
too. And the reason why I wanted to bring you onto this call, and I'm very glad and excited that you are on the call, is because you basically did reverse engineering of the Darkside malware ransomware attack
Right.
um, that took down Colonial. And then you posted that online and it was picked up by Reuters. Reuters
hmm
reported on that, which is how I came across your page.
Yep.
And I'll just let you take the story from there.
Yep. I guess to introduce myself, I'm Chuong. I am a third year CS major at Georgia Tech. And, right now I'm just doing malware analysis and reverse engineering for fun. I'll be interning for FireEye in a week, so probably next week.
Oh, that's
And
exciting.
yeah, I just had a lot of fun analyzing malware. So I just happened to come across one of the dark side samples. So just figured I should take a look. But like I didn't expect it to blow up with the whole colonial thing. But I guess
How
it
did
is
you
what
come
it
across
is.
the dark side sample? I know that they
Mhm.
basically just sell ransomware as a service for all intents and purposes. Up until last week, they got
Mhm.
shut down and their stuff was seized.
Yep. So usually, Darkseid has been a big group for a while now, and they have a lot of victims so far. And usually, when those victims got hit, they tend to upload the sample of the ransomware to the internet to see what it does and all the kind of stuff. So researcher can like extract the samples and just share it among each other. So that's how I got my hands on one of the samples.
So, and you said you were going to intern with FireEye, which is a huge info security group.
Right.
So, how did you get involved with them?
I think so I just got started with reverse engineering last year, and they
Okay.
was holding a reverse engineering competition. So, just trying to take part in it and just trying to have fun, and they reached out to me for an interview, and I guess it went pretty well from there.
When you got your hands on the dark side security sample or the software sample,
Right.
can you walk us through what you did and how you broke that down? And
Yeah.
I'll put a link to your site in the breakdown, which I've already
hmm
posted on my LinkedIn back when I saw it last week.
Right.
And it's great. It's it's very in the weeds,
hmm
which I really appreciate. So if you could just give us a rundown of that, how you came across and how you did that.
Yep. So I think it was just through a website. I think a fellow researcher was hosting it. Basically, it's where people can post malware sample so other can see it. So I saw the darkside sample. It was not the latest. The version that hit Colonial was actually 2.1,
Okay.
and I analyzed the 1.8 version. Um, but yeah, so when I grab the sample, I just basically I like to throw it into a sandbox online. I think I use AnyRun, and basically just to view like have a general idea of what it does first, like how fast it can encrypt, what encrypted files would look like when it comes out, and like the ransom note and all that. I think that was really helpful before I actually dive into analyzing it.
All right. So I'll just interject for 1 second. A sandbox
hmm
is basically just a very safe computer that's locked down away from any critical services. So when you were running that, you were just running it into on a machine that basically just was protected and it was unto itself. For those who don't really know what a sandbox is,
right.
um, so you were able to basically you found that you were able to launch that, and then you started just diving in, right?
Yep. So afterwards, just trying to understand the malware code, right? So just trying to get a glance of what its functionalities are like. I know we have to extract the configuration because we know that DarkSide is ransomware as a service, right? So it means like they don't directly launch the ransomware; they have affiliates
Mhm.
that buy the ransomware from them. So those affiliate would usually choose a set of functionalities for the sample to have, right? And it's all stored in the configuration, right? It's Darkside's way of basically telling the sample, the unique sample, what to do based on what the affiliate wants, right? So
So
extracting
the
that is,
affiliate would be like a client of theirs, right?
yep, a
Yeah.
client, yep, they would
Yeah.
buy
So
the
a
sample from
customer.
Darkside, yep.
Now, how much do these samples cost? If let's say I was a bad guy and I came to Darkside, I said, "Hey, I want to buy ransomware and I want to bring down an entire oil company."
Right.
Um,
Yep.
what? How would I do that? How much
Um,
how much would that cost?
I think there was, I might not know like, the entire
The,
thing, but I think there was a set price initially. And Darkside also take a percentage of how much they make from the victims.
the actual ransom.
Yep. Yep. I think
They
that's
cut
how
it that
the
nice.
whole
Okay.
business model works. Yep.
What I've seen on the news is that Colonial, they paid $5 million in ransom, except now Darkside had their servers and their bank accounts basically seized and shut down, so they can't get that percentage. Um, do you have an idea what the percentage would be?
I actually have no idea.
Okay.
I think it depends on the size of the victims.
Mhm.
And like I feel like they would have some kind of contract before the attack.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting business model that they would go and develop the tools
Mm-hmm.
and then sell the tools and then collect a percentage of that. And that's something I didn't really exactly realize. I thought you just paid Darkside a set fee.
Right.
So yeah, keep going with.
Right. So, after the extracting the configuration, we get to see like what kind of stuff it does, right? Like if it tries to like privilege escalate or like what kind of encryption it will do. So that was important. And, I just, I like to take a look at the pre-encryption stuff, just the nitty-gritty stuff. So DarkSide, they know that when the ransomware is launched, usually it's probably not going to have admin privilege, right? Probably launched from a user account, something like that. So they'll try to have the ransomware escalate to an admin credentials, right, in order to run the encryption, because it needs to traverse and encrypt like sensitive files and folders, right? So it needs a lot of privilege. So I think that's what they do first, and then they were checking the system, making sure that it's not a Russian computer, that kind of stuff, and just trying to take a look of everything before the encryption phase. And once that is done, then I start diving into how it's going to use hybrid cryptography to, traverse through and encrypt files.
Okay, so how did it obtain the admin privileges? Are we talking about accounts that may have had more privileges than they actually needed? Maybe system admin or someone that just went out there and just was surfing the web with their admin account.
I think I documented this in my report, but I think they use it's a pretty old trick on Windows. It's called UAC bypass.
Yes.
It's a pretty simple trick. They just figure they should give it a try and see if they can gain.
Go ahead and explain, what UAC bypass is.
So UAC is basically the thing where when we trying to run an application, it's gonna pop up something saying, "Hey, you might need admin credential to run this, right? Do you accept it or not, right?" And if we think it's malicious, we probably not gonna click OK, right?
Right.
So UAC bypass is just a way for them to just not have that pop up. It basically try to run the application with admin credential without the user consent. Yeah.
Right. So right out of the box, Windows comes with UAC enabled, and it's usually the thing that where you try to install, your first few applications, you start getting prompted, hey, do you really want to install this? Enter in your username and password, your admin account. So it sounds like that was turned off,
Yep.
and then they were able to encrypt those files. Now, I've read something about the Exchange 0 day.
Right.
Yeah, do you want to go into that and explain how that worked? And I'll preface that with Exchange being Microsoft Exchange, which is the on-premises email server that Microsoft runs. a few weeks ago, there was a 0-day exploit, which basically means Microsoft rolled out updates for this Exchange server
Hmm.
that controls email. And basically, from my understanding, that was not installed, the
Right.
updates, which are free, easy to access. Microsoft put out a bunch of bulletins regarding that. And I'll let you go on with that, but I just wanted to give some
Right.
background.
So I actually haven't looked too deep into that because it's not my specialty,
Right.
but I think it was a pretty critical vulnerability that they found. And they were just trying to get out as much patching as possible. But it's unfortunate that, for corporation with larger size and having a lot of workstations, it's really hard for them to just keep updating to the latest patch. And that's why a lot of them has the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability. And
Mhm.
that's how, like threat actors can get in and all that to launch their malware.
Yeah, I've always been a huge proponent of patching, and I know it's boring.
Hmm.
Um,
It is,
it-
yeah.
it's super boring. Nobody's really excited about patching, but it's the easiest, cheapest way to keep your system secure,
Yeah.
especially when the 0-day stuff comes out. So basically, 0 days is when an update comes out. It's pretty critical. The vendor, let's say Microsoft in this case, pushes it out and says, "Hey, download, install this, get it,
Hmm.
get it going now."
Yeah.
What kind of encryption do they use, and how does that work?
Right. So I guess just a quick glance about how these ransomware encryption works. There's basically two main encryption scheme, which is symmetric and asymmetric encryption, right?
Okay.
Symmetric is just basically mean, you have a key, you can encrypt with it, and you can decrypt with the same key, right? And it's when you are encrypting a lot of stuff, which is like, gigabytes in files, right? So you would want to use this because it's extremely fast,
Mhm.
right? But only using symmetric cryptography is not good because, where you're going to hide the key, right? Because, maybe you can put it on the victim's machine somewhere, right? But then the security team would probably find it real quick, right?
Now,
If you
okay, can you explain what the key is for?
Mhm. Right. So basically, it's just a random number, right? For each file, they'll generate a random number, and they use that random number to be the SALSA 20, which is a stream cipher key, right? So basically,
It's a super secure key.
it's just a really long number. Yeah, and it's random, right? So for each file, they would get like one key like that, right? And use that key to encrypt the files, right? And only that key can be used to decrypt the files, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, but then just leaving the key like that is, not secure because, the security team or like malware researcher, they can just take a look and they probably see the key right away, right? So ransomware authors have to protect those keys with asymmetric cryptography or public key cryptography, right? So what they do is that they have a public key and a private key, right? Darkside affiliate would keep their own private key, right? They would embed the public key inside the ransomware sample, right? Once they are done using the key to encrypt the files, right? They would use the public key to encrypt that key, right?
Mhm.
So we kind of have like a two-layer of encryption here, right?
Right. Yep.
So in order for us to decrypt the keys, right, we would need the private key, right? Because things that are encrypted by the public key can only be decrypted by the private key,
Right.
right? Which we don't have, unfortunately.
And that's
So
what we're paying the ransom for.
that is correct, yes.
So they hide the public key on the victim side.
Yep,
They
it's
keep
on the sample.
Yep,
Yeah.
and they keep the private key to themselves, and that's what you're paying for is a private key.
Yep.
Now, once they encrypt all your files, and do you, how fast do you think this happens? Where they encrypt, let's say colonials in this
Hmm.
case?
Yeah. I guess you heard about the decryptor being really slow, right? I think it got on the news like
Yeah,
yesterday.
go ahead and explain that.
Yep. So actually, the decryptor and encryptor is not that different. For stream cipher, the symmetric cryptography that we talk about, it goes both ways, right? They can use the same key to encrypt and decrypt, right? So that's not different for the decryptor. The only thing is that they swap out the public key with the private key, right? That's the only thing. So
Mm.
the speed of them is actually the same, right? And when we see colonials say that the decryptor is slow, it also means that the encryptor is also slow, right?
Mm.
So my guess is it's probably gonna take about 4 to 5 minutes for each workstation.
Wow.
Yep.
And we're probably in a company the size of Colonial, we're probably talking several hundred, maybe thousands of workstations.
Probably. Yeah.
So what about servers? Let's say we have a server with, I don't know, a terabyte of data. I assume that's probably on the low end for that company.
Yeah, that's gonna take a while, because usually workstation only have like probably 100 to 200
Yeah.
gigabytes, but yeah, it's gonna take a while, especially if they have a lot of folders, because they use kind of like a recursive method to traverse files. It takes a lot longer.
So it goes from the lowest point in the folder, the subfolder, all the way to the top root folder.
Actually,
right?
they go from top to bottom and then
Okay.
bottom back to top. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it goes both ways.
Let's say it starts
Okay.
from C folder, it goes inside the folder, when it keeps finding folder, it goes inside. Yeah, it keeps doing
Oh,
that.
wow. So not only are we talking about the money that we spent on, well, the outage,
Right.
we're also talking about the money that we spent on the actual ransom. And on top of that, we're talking about the time that's lost in the actual decryption process, which time is obviously money. So now
Right.
we're pretty deep into this now.
Yep, pretty deep, yeah. And the good thing about the Colonial X incident is that, Darkside was stealing a lot of files, right? And they was trying to extort it for money. But I don't think Colonial cared that much because those files are not sensitive, right?
Yeah, I saw there was something about their billing application. They weren't able to bill the customer, so they basically halted operations. Yeah, it wasn't the actual data that was lost.
Yep.
Now, how do you prevent it from happening?
Right. So I guess there's a lot of ways, right? So I think phishing awareness is probably one of them. I mean, it's like an old school thing, right? I don't think it happens a lot now, but it's still something to consider.
Okay, and phishing awareness being in phishing with a PH,
Yep.
PHISHING.
Yep.
Go ahead and explain what that is.
Yeah. So basically, it's just probably you have an employee and someone probably sent them and saying, hey, this is your boss. I'm sending this from my personal email, right? Here's a Word document that I need you to open and do some stuff with it, right? So
yeah,
when you open it, yeah.
And that's something we actually do. We do basically training, phishing awareness, as you say, and we send out what are essentially fake emails that are phishing attempts. And obviously when we send it, it's not malicious. It's more of a, keep your guard up training for employees.
Right.
So that's something that we're, capable of doing. We also, we do it. So phishing awareness, making sure that employees are on point, that they're not clicking on, something that looks like an Office 365 portal and then entering in their passwords.
Oh yeah,
that's a big one. And yeah, keep going.
And another thing is remote desktop protocol, right? It's a big thing now. Yep. And I guess to explain, remote desktop is just an application on each workstation where you can remotely access the workstation when you're not like physically in front of it, right? So it's probably really good when everything is remote now, like everyone's working online. They can still use the remote desktop protocol to access their workstation from home, something like that, right? And the idea is great, but usually companies don't have strong password rules for these workstation. And that's how a lot of them are compromised, right? And we have hackers who just like going around trying to guess different password and sells those access on the dark web. It's probably for like $10-$20, which is not a lot when you think about it.
But when you multiply it out by a lot of victims, then
because I remember one of the Darkside affiliate, they actually attacked a victim, and they basically just said, we bought the RDP credential on the dark web, and that's how we got in. Yeah, I think they said that. Yep.
Really?
Yep. They said like, please have stronger like security on RDP or something like that. That was pretty funny.
So were they able to? So RDP is pretty common on the internal LAN, so the inside part of the network, but not publicly.
Right.
Now, what we're seeing, and I'm coming across this, and you can probably verify or validate this,
Yeah.
is I'm seeing a lot of people that have cloud servers out there, AWS, Google, Azure, and they're not locking it down appropriately. Where they're, the RDP, like you said, is wide open and exposed to the public internet. And there's no
Right.
VPN tunnels. There's no, the firewalls aren't locked down, which are pretty simple to do.
Yeah.
So that's something I keep seeing and running into, and I can tell when I see that the person who configured that wasn't thinking.
Right.
Someone might do a scan and find it. It's pretty simple to find.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how many companies do you think are out there that are like Darkside?
Right. So like ransomware groups, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we have probably about 10 to 15 that are really huge right now.
Huge. And what's huge?
Like, they are getting a lot of like customer, right? A lot of people are buying ransomware to like launch it. And you have even like ransomware gangs themselves, they try to hack into different companies and like, and get money that way.
How hard is it to actually buy ransomware and actually roll it out? So let's say I'm an 18-year-old kid,
Right.
in my parents' house. What do I do?
I mean, before I think it's easy. Buying ransomware is probably easy. The hard part is, hacking into the companies to drop it, right? That's probably the hardest part. So they probably need to have some kind of red team or like, a hacking team to penetrate into the companies first, right? And so I would say back then it's probably easy to buy ransomware. But currently after the colonial pipeline incident, I think a lot of ransomware-as-a-service group, they try to tighten the affiliate. So they probably have like a lot of interviews and like, trying to scan people and make sure they are qualified to like receive the ransomware, right? Because I think the colonial incident was not on their on their agenda, because like it was a
It
lot
just
of
happened to be a
attention.
big fish that they caught.
Yep, it's way too big for them to handle, I think. Yeah.
Well, I saw that they had I was reading the screenshots from the chats. The initial demand was like $60 million.
Yep.
And then they negotiated it down to 5, which is still a crazy amount for just a random attack.
Definitely.
Or do you think it was a random attack, or do you think it was?
I'm pretty sure it was random. It is probably not targeted. I don't think they know how big of an impact colonial pipeline would cause when they shut everything down to damage control,
Yeah, and that's what I understand, is that these ransomware attacks are not directed toward specific organizations. While there might be some government actors out there that might be doing that, the vast majority of them are mostly just they're spraying the ransomware wherever they can on the internet, and then whoever they lock down comes and asks for the that decryption key.
Yep.
Hey, it's that ransom.
Unfortunately, that is the business model right now. Yeah.
So what do you think? Are you part of that school of thought that thinks the ransom should be paid and just it's cost of doing business, or do you think you should not pay?
Right. I think I don't support paying just because we are funding them to perform more attacks, I feel like. But then again, right, when you have Babook incidents where they hacked the Metropolitan Police Department, and they was holding a lot of private information of police officer and informants, and
which police department is this?
Right in the DC Police Department.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go into
So,
that. I remember reading about this.
Yep. So basically, they got in. They were just staying inside the police network for I think around 3 weeks and just downloading all the sensitive files, right? And they kind of know what kind of information they have. So they were asking for 4 million, I think.
What-
And
Okay.
yeah, and the police was like, we don't want to pay, but we can offer $100,000. So they end up just dumping all the data they have out. So police like record and like information and all that kind of stuff.
What what other kinds of malware should we be concerned about besides ransomware?
Right. I think banking Trojan is still a thing, right? It's
Okay.
trying.
What
Mhm.
and that is?
And it's basically just like a malicious software running in the background, and they try to gather, banking credentials when you type it into the browser, and they do that by, hooking the browser functionality to like communicate with a remote server, right? So they basically just intercept and see all the information being exchanged in between, right? So I think that's not as big as ransomware, but it's something. And we have Trojans that just like stay on the network to like monitor and see what kind of information the companies has.
Do you want to explain what a Trojan is for those who
Mhm.
don't know?
Yep. So basically, it's just probably like a normal application. When you click on it, probably nothing's gonna happen, but it launch a silent process in the background and just
It's a
sitting
program
there.
just sitting in the background.
Yep, just listening to what you do, maybe capture your keystroke, right, and see what you type into your browser or something like that, right? It has all kind of functionalities, but basically, yeah, it's mainly for monitoring. And,
Okay, monitoring and when you're monitoring your banking info and your financial info, that's a little scary.
Mhm.
How do you mitigate against stuff like that?
Right. I guess to mitigate malware in general, I think we just need to stay vigilant, right? So we talk about phishing, and we need to keep an eye out for any intrusion attempt, because these ransomware groups, they don't just go in and drop ransomware right away, right? They usually stay for 2 to 3 weeks, right, before, so they just monitor and see which server has the most valuable data and how many workstations there are, right, and what kind of stuff people in the network's doing, right? So during that 2 to 3 weeks period is the amount of time the security team would have to try to detect them, right? And most of the attacks we see are from the ones that fail to detect, right? So basically, when they get in, it's just a matter of time before they drop some kind of malware, right? So I think we need to stay vigilant about that.
And how would you go about detecting that?
Right. So I know with a lot of ransomware group, right, their hacking team is not that great.
Hmm.
They make a lot of noises in the system, right? They try to
Noises
download stuff.
being
Mm-hmm.
noises
Yep.
being
They try to download like software to escalate privileges from sketchy website online, right? And it should be something that's relatively easy to spot if people check the network log and see if there's any sketchy communication to some random website, maybe from Russia or something like that, right? And they make a lot of like noises. They try to download terabytes in files, right? And that should like be relatively
if you're
simple to spot, right?
if you're a network admin and you see terabytes of information, and bandwidth being sucked up like that
Mm-hmm.
in a
Yep.
relatively short amount of time, that should give you a little bit of
That's kind of alarming, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's a lot of data to go go over the pipe
Mm-hmm.
in a short amount of time.
Yep.
Okay, so we have phishing campaigns that we should be aware of. Staying vigilant,
Right.
just making sure as a system admin or let's just say that you're a business and Comcast calls you and says, "Hey, you've gone through your 1 terabyte allotment for this month," and
Yep.
that's something to be concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then
Maybe multi-factor authentication,
it's
right?
perfect. Yeah, MFA.
Yep. So even if your password is compromised, right, they don't have access to maybe your phone, right? So you can block out, access attempt from, intruders that way. Yeah.
Yeah, MFA just, I think that's probably the easiest way to prevent breaches. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
you have a code that ends up on your phone, and you have to type that code into the website, whether that be Office 365 or, we do that for all of our clients as well. And then that proves that you are who you say
Mm-hmm.
you are, basically. So we have MFA, phishing, vigilance, just
Right.
basically just keeping your guard up at all times.
Mm-hmm.
I'll toss in patching again.
Right.
you know,
RDP. Right.
yeah, making sure that your remote sessions aren't available to the internet, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you are running a firewall and you've locked down your remote sessions to just internal traffic,
Mm-hmm.
and even then you can lock it down even further. The
Right.
people that need access to it should only have, the access that they require. And also, I think you mentioned earlier that admin accounts,
Right.
don't serve the web
Yeah.
with your
Not at
admin
all.
account.
Yeah.
You're
Not the move. Yeah.
yeah, just use the least amount of privileges that you require.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we like to recommend, and it sounds like you agree with that, which is
Yep,
good.
definitely. I think usually in the corporate setting, I think people are reluctant to sacrifice usability for security, right? But when we think about it, like probably logging in into multi-factor authentication can be annoying, but it's
Yeah.
probably not as annoying having to pay the ransom of $5 million, right? So it's the trade-off that we have to make there. Yeah.
What do you think about backups?
Mm-hmm.
So generally, if there's a ransomware attack, generally you can pretty quickly recover, from a good backup. But have you heard of ransomware attacking the backups or encrypting the backups? And what
Mm-hmm.
happens in that scenario?
Actually, even Darkside or any other ransomware, they actively trying to look for backup folders, right? Backup servers to attack, and they just
Mhm.
basically try to wipe it, right? I like if they can encrypt it, then it's good. But if they can, they probably just try to wipe it, right? To prevent them from backup, right? But then if you have something like on the cloud, then that's probably safe, right? That's really safe. And I think that, the whole extortion thing, stealing files to I think that was a way for them to combat backup, right? Because they're saying that even if you back up and you can restore from backup, we still have your sensitive information and we'll release it if you don't pay, right? That's just another way for them to ensure that you pay them one way or the other.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even though you can get your data back from a good backup, you
Mm-hmm.
still run the risk of having that data leaked,
Yep,
which is
definitely.
almost as bad or worse than
Mm-hmm.
losing it. So, what are you working on right now, basically? Now that you've decrypted, or not decrypted, but reverse engineered Darkside, what's next on your plate?
Um, right now I'm just well, I'm helping out a friend. They just asked for my help about the Conti incident in the Irish Health Center, right?
Okay, go on about that. I've read a
Right.
little bit about this.
So I didn't follow the news that much, but basically the Irish Health Center and their infrastructure is attacked by Conti ransomware, which is kind of surprising because most ransomware group they don't really attack health sectors. But then you have Conti ransomware that's out there. It's just yeah, we just gonna attack it and ask for a bunch of money. So that was pretty big. So I'm just helping some people, analyzing the ransomware and make sure we understand what it does.
Okay, and are you going to post more about that on your site?
Um, I think I already have a report on Conti ransomware. The
Okay.
sample we are analyzing is pretty much the same as some additional functionality. So probably not, but it's still good to take a look and see what they are up to now.
How do people reach you?
Right. So on my website, there's the link to my email and my Twitter. Probably the best is through Twitter because I'm really active there. But
Okay.
my email is great too. I check my email regularly. And yeah.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's C Peter with 2 R.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll post that too. So I really appreciate you taking the time, just to talk to us about this. And I hope we can get together again. And basically, I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think this is the last time we're going to see something like this.
Unfortunately,
so,
yeah.
I'd like to have future discussions with you.
So feel free to just reach out to me. I had a lot of fun here too. So.
All right, thank you.